Okay, so yesterday we worked on getting equations to be in one of these two forms based on which variable was being squared. Today we're going to look at, once we get it into this form, there's a couple things, there are 4 or 5 different things we can identify. We're going to talk about one, maybe 2 of those today. So for each one of these, no matter which form it is, the vertex is going to be the point HK. And the vertex is either with a vertical, it is the lowest point or the highest point of your parabola. With the horizontal, it's either the farthest left point or the farthest right point. And if we're graphing a parabola, we have to have the vertex graphed. Otherwise, it's not a complete graph. So once we have it in this equation, we can identify the vertex and then we can do some graphing. Another thing that I want to mention is that we have what's called the axis of symmetry. And the axis of symmetry is what the line that cuts our parabola in half that we could reflect it on. So for this parabola, it would be that line. Why is it not graphing? That's what's happening. Anyway, it's this line right here. We could draw a line. So go ahead and do that like a dashed line there. And let's draw a little dashed line right there because I don't know if I'm going to lose this. Nope. Oh, thank goodness. There we go. So there, that's our axis of symmetry. We have an axis of symmetry there. That's pretty ugly. There we go. So how do we identify the axis of symmetry? So we're going to say axis of symmetry is the equation. For the vertical, it is x equals h. For the, I'm going to just AOS, axis of symmetry. On the horizontal, it's the line y equals k. And so we can find points and just flip them over that. And that's how we will be able to help plot some points for our parabola. So today we're going to, I wrote down yesterday's equations that we worked on to get them to this form, either the vertical or the horizontal. We're going to talk about identifying the vertex, the axis of symmetry, and then finding another 1 or 2 points on our parabola to do a very rough sketch of our parabola. Okay, so I want you to use this. So we're going to identify 2 things and then plot that information and then get another 2 points to plot for our rough sketch of our graph. So the very first thing that we can identify is our vertex. So remember, vertex is HK. So this is very similar to when we work with our circle. What's in parentheses with your x and your y, you use the opposite. So here our vertex is going to be, let me do this a little differently. Our vertex is going to be, what's the opposite of what's in with x? 2. And the opposite of what's in with y? 2. So there's our vertex, and let's go ahead and identify our axis of symmetry. So our AOS, we're going to call that, that's our axis of symmetry, is for a vertical, it is x equals h. So what is h? It's 2. So it's x equals whatever our x coordinate is in our vertex. So x equals 2. All right, so I'm going to plot the vertex at 2, 2. So go ahead and do that as well. 2, 2, there's our vertex. And then our axis of symmetry, you can draw a dashed vertical line that goes through that point. That's your axis of symmetry. So our graph's going to flip over that line. And there's our vertex. Okay, so how do we find another point? So I would recommend if it is a vertical one, I would let x equal 0 because I'd like to see where it crosses the y-axis. So we're going to do that. We're going to let x equal 0 and plug it into our equation where we have, so it would be 0 minus 2 squared equals 4 times y minus 2. And we want to solve for y. So negative 2 squared, that's going to be 4 on the left, correct? And I'm going to distribute that 4, so that gives me 4y minus 8 on the right. And now I solve for y. So add 8, divide by 4. So I'm going to get 4y equals 12, and then divide by 4, y equals 3. So that's going to give me the point x was 0, y is 3, correct? Yeah. Okay, so that I'm going to plot 0, 3 right here on my graph. And using my axis of symmetry, then I can just flip that point over the axis and it would give me this other point. Remember doing that with, we've done that before. When we were solving parabolas, quadratic equations. There we go. So now we'll do a very rough sketch. Your parabola, we know where the vertex is, we know where it crosses, so we're just going to do a very rough sketch of our parabola. Okay, so in reviewing this, we started out with the equation already. We had the equation, we identified the vertex and the axis of symmetry, and we plotted those. And then we plugged in, because it's a vertical one, we want to see where it crosses the y-axis. That's always an important point to have if you can. So we plugged in 0 for x, simplified and found y, and then plotted that point, reflected it over that axis of symmetry, and there's our graph. So let's do the next one. Example B from yesterday, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you have y plus 4, that quantity squared, equals a negative 2 times the quantity x plus 1? Yeah. Okay, so that's going to be our next example. So let's go ahead and go to the next area. And we're going to put in, this is B, our equation was y plus 4. That quantity squared equals negative 2 times x plus 1. Okay, so vertex is HK. H is what's being with x. H is with x, K is with y. So it might be that this y appears first because that quantity is squared, but that's not the x coordinate of our vertex. The y is the y coordinate, the x is the x coordinate. So we can identify our vertex. It's going to be, what's in parentheses? What's the opposite with x? So it would be negative 1. And then what's the opposite with y? Negative 4. So we can go ahead and plot that point, negative 1, negative 4. And our axis of symmetry is different. Remember, it's because this is a horizontal one, it's going to open right or left because the y is squared. So the axis of symmetry is y equals whatever the y coordinate is for our vertex. So our axis of symmetry, y equals negative 4. And so we can go ahead and plot the dashed line, and it's going to be a horizontal. For a horizontal graph, our axis of symmetry is horizontal. For a vertical graph, it's vertical. Okay, so kind of the opposite with this. I want to know where it's going to cross the x-axis. So with a vertical one, I want to know where it's crossing the y. With the horizontal one, let's see where it crosses the x. So we're going to let y equal 0. and plug it into our equation. So that gives us 0 plus 4 squared equals, and I'm going to distribute that negative 2 through right away. And I get negative, or 4 squared would be 16 equals negative 2x minus 2. I'm going to add 2, divide by a negative 2. So x is going to be a negative 9. Would you agree? So that gives me the point negative 9, 0, because I got negative 9 for x while plugging in 0 for y. So I can put that point, that's going to be negative 9, 0 right there. And remember our axis of symmetry, we can flip that point across this axis and plot it. So here's the other point, and now we can graph our parabola. Very rough sketch of our parabola's graph. Yep. Okay, and now we need to know our axis of symmetry. First of all, is this going to open right? Is it vertical or horizontal, Cheyenne? Horizontal. So our axis of symmetry is going to be y equals some number. How do we know what that number is, Corbin?
Take the number that's with the y.
The y coordinate of our vertex, right? So y equals 2. Why is that not drawing very well? Okay, so we're going to plot the point. 5, 2, I already did that. My axis of symmetry is y equals 2. That's going to be this horizontal line that goes through our vertex. 2 out of 3 steps done. Now what are we going to let be 0 so that we can find the other variable? We're going to let y equal 0. So an easy way to remember that, whatever's here first that's being squared, that's the value we're going to let equal 0 and find the other. So we're going to let y equal 0. Plug it into our equation, 0 minus 2. I have no idea what this is going to give us. 12x minus 60. Is it going to be a plottable point?
No.
Not on our graph?
64 divided by 12.
Oh, that's all right. We'll have a decimal. That's okay.
That's not 64.
All right, so we have, this is 4, right? Then we're going to add the 60 to it, so we get 12x equals 64. What's 64 divided by 12?
5.3. Like it would be 1/3.
It would be a third?
Yes.
Somebody do that for me. So I relied on the young brains. Thank you very much, young brains. So 5 1/3. So while we found the exact, that's the point, 5 1/3, 0, right? Because we let y equal 0. So I'm going to go to 5 1/3, and that's about right there. It is a very wide graph. So then I can flip that over here, and I've got that point. So it will be a very wide graph, but just a rough, we're going to do this. And that didn't go through very well because, again, I'm using my fingertip, and that's not super easy. Okay. What? I'm sorry. -4, -4. Yes, that is correct. So let's plot the point -4, -4. What is our axis of symmetry? Anna, what's our axis of symmetry? What equals -4? X equals -4. So I'm going to plot that. It's vertical, remember. Okay, and what am I going to plug in? Which variable am I going to let be 0? X, right? Whatever quantity is being squared, that's what we're going to let equal 0. So x equals 0. Plug it into your formula, and then get